I take a, I know, nobody, I know it's a difficult situation, but look at it, the difficult situation Kapil call has been aggravated. Look at Delhi. One of the runways has not been operational, the runway which has Cat 3, one of the key runways has not been operational since December 15th. It's being repaired. I mean, surely this was, this was not the time to go. The one main runway that you have with Cat 3 is non-functioning in the national capital. Should that not be a concern in Mumbai? There was an air show for 3 days. Mumbai airspace was also locked in for 3 crucial days in a very busy tourist season. I mean, there are questions of priorities, there are questions of organization. Now the minister stepped in and said, DGCA must give an instant approval now to this 4th runway of Delhi. So there are other problems also on the ground.
No, that's correct. Rajdeep, and one of the other things that you may need to factor in is that if Delhi airport has Cat 3B compliant runway, there are only 6 airports, 6 metros that have Cat 3B compliant airport. The spoke airports around Delhi airport are not Cat 3. So what Mr. Jitendra Bhargava was saying about the situation getting out of hand, it's because of the fact that sometimes the flights around North India don't have a Cat 3B operation and landing system. So if you don't have Cat 3B around 8-10 airports or 7-8 airports in the northern India, it impacts the Delhi airport as well.
And how many pilots would you say, Kapil, are trained to land in Cat 3 on Cat 3 airports? Are most of them trained now?
Almost closer to 5,000 are trained for Cat 3B landing. But normally when the schedules get disrupted in a national grid, it will sometimes be not possible to have a pilot who's trained for a Cat 3B operation. But I must just add, frankly, that you will again have such situations. You can avoid the severity of the situation. There will be pockets again between 15 December to 15 Jan, particularly in North India, that you may have a very, very severe situations because the fog, the weather is changing. And Rajdeep, one more thing. It's not, I mean, I don't know whether anybody is aware that in December 22, in United States, Southwest had to cancel 17,000 flights on the weather because of the inclement weather. In Europe, these disruptions are common. I agree that we could avoid it, and we should make sure that there are SOPs in place, information sharing system in place, customer engagement in place. But this is going to happen again and again. We can avoid the severity.
I take your point. You're saying you can't avoid it, but you can avoid the severity. But Lloyd Matthias, as someone who's worked in corporate culture, is there a fear that some of our airlines have become monopolistic and the passengers are dependent on them? Therefore, their inability to communicate to the passengers is becoming a big concern. That they tend to treat passengers for granted. They need to communicate. They need to have better systems in place.
Absolutely, Rajdeep. I think what we have staring at us in the face is the fact that there is a comfortable duopoly in play. There's the Tata Group that owns Air India and Vistara, and then there's Indigo. And there are a lot of routes where you have no choice but to fly one or the other. I think in that context, I think the airlines, recognizing that this is an annual occurrence, I think need to plan better. They need to have some cross-functional teams where they can, move passengers on either airline when the severity of this thing happens. The second part, I think being part of a service industry, I think they need to treat consumers and travelers much better, and their staff need to be trained to communicate. I mean, you wouldn't go to a hotel and expect for 1 hour to hang out in the reception before someone attends to you. Whereas in this case, there are hours going by when neither the cockpit crew, nor the cabin crew, nor the ground staff are communicating with passengers. And this only aggravates difficulty. And this is something that should have been foreseen. I mean, Delhi's and North India's fog between December and Jan is an annual occurrence. Kapil spoke about Cat 3. I think Cat 3 is in play. But the fact that all this reaches a point where you have 12 to 14-hour delays and zero communication with passengers, I think is completely unacceptable. And I do believe that having a duopoly in the Indian aviation sector is a big cause for worry.
Do you agree with that, Jitendra Bhargava, we have a virtual, if not monopoly, a duopoly today in the aviation sector, and therefore at times passengers are being taken for granted?
Rajdeep, absolutely not. You will recall we've done several programs where people have been misled, have not been communicated the right position, even 10 years ago when there were 6 airlines operating. Jet Airways was there, Kingfisher was there, there were many other airlines. It's the same scenario when people talk of fares being, because of the monopoly, fares going up. We had last year a severe debate on fare increases when there were 5 airlines operating. It isn't because of these factors. Airlines have no incentive to mistreat a passenger, delay a flight, cancel a flight, divert a flight. It is happening because of factors which are beyond their control. I've been only seeking from passengers some kind of consideration, appreciation of operational constraints, not in the normal situation. When you have fog hitting the flight schedules, aircraft scattered everywhere, flights operating, as Kapil very rightly said, CAT 3 pilots when you roster them on a certain day, the fog doesn't come the next day. You need rest. How do you multiply it? And let's not also forget, in the year 2023, 133 aircraft got added, which meant 2,000 additional pilots. Can airlines afford to ground pilot for CAT 3 training so that we do not have it? And
that's a good point. That's a good point that I want to take to Captain A.D. Manik, former aviation instructor who's been listening carefully. Mr. Captain Manik, where is the problem? Are the pilots also limited in their choices at times like this? Are airlines, in your view, limited when you're faced with a severe fog? Is there a solution out there? You're on mute, Captain.
The problems, what we have been facing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The problems what we have been facing, on a different kind of background and different factors involved. So the first thing what I was listening very carefully and I understand the situations, what's going on. My view on this is it's not the fault of operator, airline, where passenger go and blame and something. A lot of things are involved. It's a airport operator, Airport Authority of India, the regulator, DGCA, Government of India is involved. And it's a weather, it's a nature, and one have to understand.
So you're saying stop the blame game. You're saying you can't blame anyone.
Yes, I agree that, and that strongly we can't blame somebody. And we need to concentrate on have a meeting with the regulator and the airport operator and airline operator, and then.
No, I take your point, Captain. I take your point, but the fact is, Lloyd Matthias, that you're a passenger, you're angry today, you vented on Twitter as I have and many others have. Here are 3 experts virtually suggesting, look, there's a severe fog out there. Kapil Kaul is reminding you what happened in the United States when there was a blizzard in 2022. This happens across the world. Is that good enough, you believe, a response for a passenger today? That, look, please bear with us. This inconvenience is not unusual. Is that good enough for you, Lloyd?
Not really,
Yes,
Raj. I do recognize that the winter and fog is an annual occurrence in North India. I know it can cause severe disruptions. I think the manner in which it's been handled, the fact that it just took today for the aviation minister to kind of wake up and take in some measures right to the airlines, very fact that the 2 airlines have not been speaking with each other to accommodate passengers on each other's flights, the very fact that communication has been pathetic, if not dismal, I think a lot of this speaks of the fact that there is a sense of complacency, the fact that we can take passengers for granted. And in a modern world where there are lots of people are traveling, I think this is completely unacceptable. I hear all the 3 aviation professionals on the show. I'm deeply disappointed that an industry that's so large is you can say so immune to consumer issues. I think this is serious. In any other industry, this would be an absolute no-go. I think this calls for severe penalties, and the aviation ministry must take it up very, very strongly with the airlines. Cannot take passengers for granted.
You cannot take passengers for granted. Let me give my friend Jitendra Bhargava a final word. Lloyd Matthias saying don't take passengers for granted anymore.
Rajdeep, no airline takes passengers for granted. There is competition. There are people being lured.
Jitendra Bhargava, it's not as simple as that no airline takes passengers. You need better training. You need better HR. You need better reach out. Why do you think passengers are getting so infuriated?
Passengers are getting infuriated because of the experience they've had in the fog without appreciation of the constraints. They believe What matters to them is one single flight. What matters to the airline is the total flight operations, not for the day that they are talking of the next day. So there are various constraints that they have. Now, no passenger, let me repeat again, no, it is not in airlines' interest to delay or inconvenience passengers. They wouldn't take it for granted. Both the airline, Tata Airlines as well as Indigo, have placed huge orders for aircraft. If they adopt this policy of taking passengers for granted, how are they going to keep the market stimulated and fill up the aircraft that they're going to be inducting over the next few years? The growth of the Indian market is in the interest of the airlines, whether there are a couple of airlines or there are 6 airlines operating.
Okay.
And that's the biggest kind of bet that one can put on, that monopoly will not be exploited because there are far too many aircraft that have been ordered. And they will keep looking for passengers to fill up the aircraft.
Let me leave it there. We've had two very different points of view, some from the passenger perspective, some from those who've been in the airlines. Clearly, something needs to be done. We are proud of the fact that we have this open skies policy, but open skies cannot lead now to chaotic skies. You need better work both on the ground and in the air to ensure at the end that passengers come first, their safety as well as their convenience.